This is our official new backdrop, our parchment paper design. For today, though, I considered switching it to this. I think this would be an appropriate backdrop for this evening's show. Bill from YouTube says, who okayed those optics? Who saw that and thought, yep, this is perfect? Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
It's amazing.
Like, as a theater director, that's how I would light The Fascist. If I were doing a live version of It Can't Happen Here, that is how I would light The Rally.
It's really incredible.
Like, what the fuck?
There was a sci-fi quality to this. There was a futuristic Orwellian quality to just the optics of that speech that was just truly extraordinary. It would have been extraordinary under any circumstances. Given that the thrust of the speech was that democracy is losing ground to fascism and we have to save democracy.
Right.
To have that set design
to go
there,
with that.
Like, yo,
right. Yeah.
I mean, truly incredible. But we are going to give our review of the so-called Dark Brandon speech, as it has been branded right now. I wrote a little article about the speech this morning. And I'll just give a brief take before we go to the video. You know, you had a lot of right-wingers pearl-clutching about how divisive this speech was. You know, you had, Shapiro, Hannity, Levin, Tucker Carlson talk about how this was an effort to sort of delegitimize or even criminalize the Republican Party as an organization, calling Biden a demagogue, calling this extremely divisive. And look, in normal context, I would sort of cede that point to them. That's a bit of a ridiculous charge coming from Trump supporters, the guy who launched his campaign by smearing Mexican immigrants as drug dealers and rapists, barred Muslims from entering the country as basically his first act once taking office.
He said some are good people.
He did say some. He assumes are good people.
They always drop that part.
Right, exactly.
Of the speech. It was actually, I think, very progressive for its
diplomatic,
time.
Right?
That was all the way back in 2015. I mean, it was pretty open-minded for that era.
Long time ago already. But, of course, one of the last things he tried to do before leaving office in the summer of 2020 was he suggested 10-year prison sentences be handed down to Black Lives Matter protesters for spray painting, dicks and balls on the face of a Thomas Jefferson statue, right? So the right-wingers can spare me the sort of faux indignation about how divisive Joe Biden's speech was. I didn't think that was the main problem with the speech. The main problem with Joe Biden's speech is that it's a complete lie. Okay? The thrust of Joe Biden's speech is that he can work with the quote-unquote mainstream Republicans. It's these Trump Republicans, these MAGA Republicans who are beyond the pale.
He can work with Liz Cheney.
He can work with Liz Cheney, right.
Look, now, we pass a bill, you can get an abortion up to 4 weeks. It's bipartisan. God
I don't even mean it.
That you can work with.
I mean, look, I don't even mean it from that level. I mean, on its face, that is a complete lie, given that the Democratic Party, this election cycle, is funding Trump Republicans in Republican primaries. We did a whole show about that earlier. We're going to revisit that in a moment, but let's go to some of the video here. Before we go to the video of Biden, Russell, you caught some footage from the green room, right? You have some exclusive audio from the green room while Biden was backstage. Do you want to?
Yeah, this was their warm up. They were warming up for the show, I think.
Yeah, those are the vocal warm ups in the green room. And I think Biden may have overdone it with those vocal warm-ups. That's probably why he was coughing so much when he first came out. Right.
Yeah. Most people don't know he speaks German.
Right, exactly.
He gets labeled a dumb guy, but he actually bilingual.
And he's not a bad singer either. I think he just overdid it, which is why he was kind of coughing.
No. What really messed him up was this.
Deutschland, Sieg, Heil! Heil!
You can hear him straining the vocal cords.
Oh, yeah. That's all up here. That's all in the neck. You gotta. Everybody
diaphragm.
knows you project from the diaphragm, not from the throat.
You can just hear he's doing it from
Bad form. Got to have good fundamentals as a stage performer, whether you're an actor, a politician, or both. All right, let's go to the video. Here's Joe Biden's lies about extending an olive branch to the quote-unquote mainstream Republicans.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans, are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country.
Okay, if that is a threat to this country, if you really believe that that is an existential threat to this country, then why is the DCCC and House Majority PAC and the Democratic Governors Association pouring literally millions of dollars into Republican primaries, elevating pro-Trump, the very MAGA Republicans that he denounces so strongly in this speech? They are boosting them.
And in many cases, against these honorable Republicans who don't support Stop the Steal. These are supposed to be the Republicans you want, right? Nancy Pelosi. Here's me, Nancy Pelosi, saying I want a strong Republican Party. But you don't really. You're stabbing those people in the back.
You're stabbing them in the back, right? You are actively working against the very Republicans who you say need to take their party back. Let's look at Michigan's 3rd congressional district, right? There was an incumbent there named Peter Meyer. He was one of 10 Republicans in the House to impeach Donald Trump after the January 6th riot. Now, you would think that would have earned him the respect of Democratic leaders like Joe Biden, who says in that speech, we just heard him, hey, I can work with the mainstream Republicans. You would think it would earn him more than their respect. You would think, if anything, Democrats would support Peter Meyer in his campaign so that they keep an anti-Trump Republican.
For a Republican.
Right, exactly. Wouldn't be the first time, right, exactly. You would think they would want Meyer to hold that seat if democracy is really on the line. If our democracy is really on the line, and this is an emergency that warrants a speech like this and actions like this, you would think they would go to bat for Peter Meyer against the Trump-backed challenger John Gibbs. Turns out, no. The DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, poured $400,000 worth of into TV ads propping up John Gibbs, who was backed by Donald Trump. He supports all of the Stop the Steal shit that Donald Trump tried to pull, and he is one of the biggest proponents of a conspiracy theory that has to do with Democrats engaging in spirit cooking, which is a form of satanic ritual, right? So this is one of the craziest of the MAGA Republicans who was running in a primary against one of the anti-Trump, pro-impeachment Republicans.
Listen,
and Democrats,
I am a spirit cooker from way back, and I'm no Democrat.
Exactly right. And Democrats supported John Gibbs over Peter Meyer.
You have not had jambalaya until you've had it prepared that way.
Right, yeah, exactly. That way, exactly. So they supported John Gibbs, and guess what? With the Democrats' help, John Gibbs successfully defeated Peter Meyer in the Republican primary for Michigan's 3rd, and John Gibbs is now on the ballot in November. And this liar has the balls to come out here and say, hey, we need the good Republicans to take their party back. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's party is sabotaging those very good Republicans in order to elevate these MAGA Republicans for the simple reason that they feel that the MAGA Republicans are going to be easier adversaries to defeat in November. Where did they try that before? Oh, yeah, 2016.
Oh, yeah, they did try that, didn't they? The Pied
Piper. The Pied Piper strategy.
The Pied Piper strategy.
Hillary
With,
Clinton's campaign.
Hillary's brilliant strategery.
They elevated Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. They told the media to elevate Cruz and Trump, give them more airtime, take them seriously, because we want to run against either Cruz or Trump, because Cruz or Trump will be easier to beat than, say, a Kasich or a Rubio. We saw how that happened.
So Gary here says Biden isn't in charge of the DCCC, unlike the GOP.
Okay, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you said that.
I will grant you he might not even know about it because he's about a year away from putting Pop Diet. The Trump candidates will lose in November. Where have I heard that before? Things have definitely been complicated by the road decision. They're not going to do as well as they would have. You still have runaway inflation. We have not even begun to see the fallout from Europe going into winter without enough gas, and Powell continuing to raise interest rates. He's on a mission to break the economy, and it could very well break right around the time of the midterm elections. So making an assumption like that, if you really believe democracy is on the line, is the height of irresponsibility. You're not just risking the prospects of your party, you're risking democracy, right? That's what he's saying. And I actually don't disagree. So you're going to risk that with runaway inflation, with the Fed chair promising essentially to drive the economy into a recession. That's essentially what he's saying, that a recession is preferable to 70s style inflation. So we're going. And you're that confident the Trump candidates are going to lose?
Well, we'll get to that because there's polling that indicates that that's not a sure thing by any stretch. And even if it were 75% a sure thing, if the stakes are as high as Joe Biden claims
you want to risk that?
you would not take that chance. If you actually meant anything of what you said about the nobility of the never Trump Republicans, we saw, them just, kissing the feet of Liz Cheney right up until she lost her primary, then you would not be sabotaging these very same never Trump GOPers. That's what Adam Kinzinger said. Hold on, I'm pulling up the quote here. Adam Kinzinger is another anti-Trump GOPer. And when he found out that the DCCC was pulling this shit, he said something that makes a ton of sense. He says, don't keep coming to me asking where are all the good Republicans that defend democracy, and then take your donors' money and spend $500,000 promoting one of the worst election deniers that's out there, meaning John Gibbs. He's 100% right. And as for this, as for your item number one there, Gary, I almost preempted. I didn't know you were going to write that, obviously, but I almost preempted you by saying, don't give me any of this bullshit that Joe Biden is not in charge of the DCCC and he doesn't make that call. Joe Biden is the leader of the Democratic Party. The buck stops at him, period. And at the very least, Joe Biden should publicly scold the DCCC for engaging in that kind of shit if he cared about this as much as he claims to in that speech. There's no excuse for it whatsoever. No excuse for it whatsoever. As for your second point there, Trump candidates will lose in November. We have more to say on that in just a moment, but I want to go back to the video first.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy.
So are the non-MAGA Republicans, by the way. Liz Cheney, just as anti-choice as Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No right to contraception. No right to marry who you love.
Again.
Oh yeah.
So are the non-MAGA Republicans.
They're running around with those rainbow flags flapping in the wind.
They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections.
Okay, so what he's saying is that the MAGA Republicans are going to try to steal the 2024 race. All right, let's go to Exhibit B, the Pennsylvania governor's race, where Doug Mastriano, the current Republican nominee, who not only supported Donald Trump's election lies, Mastriano was actually at the January 6th riot and helped the crowd break into the Capitol building, right? So this guy actually got his hands dirty trying to overthrow the results, okay? Mastriano was running as a long shot candidate in the Republican primary to be the governor of PA. Democrats boosted him and elevated him in that primary field. Josh Shapiro, Democratic nominee, spent $840,000 of campaign money boosting the profile of Doug Mastriano, basically pitching him to Republican primary voters. Doug Mastriano won the nomination. He is now on the ballot to be the next governor of PA. Now, Doug Mastriano is an election denier. Doug Mastriano will be governor of perhaps the most pivotal swing state in the 2024 presidential race. This is especially dangerous because in Pennsylvania, the governor alone unilaterally appoints the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is responsible for certifying election results, which means if Doug Mastriano wins, Doug Mastriano can appoint a crony as Secretary of State who will overturn the results of the election if the Democrat wins Pennsylvania. Follow that? So that is the shit that Democrats have risked by elevating Doug Mastriano in that primary.
At the same time, I think now with this data set, I think we need to make a radical proposition. Clearly, Democrats aren't any good at getting themselves elected, but they're very good at getting Republicans elected. So why don't they run as Republicans?
Well, that would be something. That would be
That's
something
it.
because I just
Flip the
want to
whole
speak
thing.
to Gary's point. I want to speak to Gary's point. The Trump-backed candidates will lose. The latest poll out of Pennsylvania has Shapiro, the Democrat, at 47, Mastriano 44. It's a 3-point race. Within the margin of error. That is a very, very
Republicans
close race.
usually overperform the polls.
Well, here's the thing. In a year like this, between Roe versus Wade and Donald Trump maybe announcing his candidacy, maybe not, and obviously macro factors favoring the GOP, it's an off-year election that historically favors them.
Right.
Inflation is going to be a big issue. There are a ton of X factors in terms of turnout, which means if the polling is within the margin of error, any serious political analyst would call it 50-50. There's simply no way to make a call in that race right now. There's no way to even guess who's going to win, which means don't give me this shit that, the Trump people are going to lose. Mastriano is within striking distance. And by the way, Joe Biden's approval rating...
Democrats say that, it's almost a sure thing that the Republicans are going to outperform.
Well,
I don't think I've ever heard Democrats say that and not wind up with egg on their face. Ever.
I mean, it's certainly possible. Joe Biden's approval rating in Pennsylvania is 39%. He did not get any real bounce in Pennsylvania from the IRA or the student debt thing. He's still under 40 in Pennsylvania. So don't tell me that the Trump candidates are going to lose. That's MSNBC bullshit. That's propaganda. How many times do you have to be upset? I mean, even in a blue wave year, Republican candidates shocked you at the state level. Everybody thought, what was the guy's name? The guy who ended up in a hotel room with the drugs on in his face. The guy who ran for governor of Florida.
Matt Gaetz.
No, not Matt
Gaetz, right?
No. He ran for governor of Florida as a Democrat. Gillum, Andrew Gillum. That's it, right? Gillum.
He was found in a hotel with cocaine.
Yeah, he's in like rehab. He had like a nervous breakdown. Big problem.
You know what? I missed that whole thing.
But anyway,
that's why I didn't know who you were talking about.
In a blue wave year, he was up by 7 points going into election day. In a blue wave year, he lost. So anything can happen, man. Anything can happen, man. It is completely insane to be gambling like this.
To take that kind of a risk, because this is one thing I will say: Biden's not wrong. In terms of his overall thesis that there is this faction in the Republican Party that is fully prepared to just chuck even the pretense of democracy. Not that we have real democracy now, but any pretense of it out the window. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. They are definitely trying to control these election boards and rig them in such a way that they can reject the vote. Yes, that is definitely happening. So you're going to empower these people on the premise that you guys, who, let's face it, nobody fucking likes you. The only time anybody votes for a Democrat is when the Republicans scare the shit out of them enough and things are fucked up enough, they'll run to the Republicans. But you guys are so culturally, on a cultural level, you're so abhorrent to most of the country. You can never rely on winning outside of your blue state coastal strongholds. And even within those, usually the more rural parts of those states are still red. You can only really rely on the cities. New York is a deep red state with New York City in it. Actually, I should say with 4 boroughs and Staten Island.
And Staten Island in it, right? Exactly. Exactly. No, it's just completely reckless, and it's more than just hypocrisy. That was one of the pieces of feedback I got on the article. Well, they're not liars as much as they are hypocrites. No, they're liars because the thrust of the speech is that he is willing to engage in good faith with mainstream non-MAGA Republicans. That was one of the main thrusts of the speech, which of course is a lie because his party is sabotaging those people. And don't give me the excuse that he's not in charge of that. You're the president. You're the leader of the party. You're in charge of everything. If the DCCC is doing something that you don't like going into this crucial midterm, you can absolutely get the word out to knock it off. And he has not done that. He has not done that. So we know where he stands on this. It's not a mystery at all.
Please clap.